The fire did not announce itself with a crackle. It arrived with a roar, swallowing the Dawson cabin in a single breath of orange fury.
Thomas, Margaret, out the back, now.
Thomas. Where's Thomas?
Charles burst through the back door. The boy clutched to his chest as the burning roof caved in. Behind them, with a thunderous crash, they stood in the deep snow, watching everything they owned turn to embers, the heat still searing their faces.
Not tonight. Not like this. I will not let my family freeze.
Charles, the baby's blanket. There's nothing left. What do we do?
Ha! I am cold!
The nearest town was 4 miles away. The temperature was already dropping far below freezing, and they had no shelter, no coats, nothing but the nightgowns on their backs.
We move. Now, there's an old ice house on the ridge. It's not much, but it has walls. It'll have to do.
The family stumbled down the ridge, snow crusting their nightgowns, Buck leading with his nose low.
It's not much, but it's standing. That's more than we have right now.
He left Margaret and Thomas huddled beneath a pine and approached the hulking shape. The door refused him at first, then groaned open on rusted hinges. Inside, the cold was complete, but the air was dead still. No draft, no whisper of wind.
Sawdust. They packed these walls the way they'd pack a meat locker.
He ran his hand over the timber, 2 layers thick, filled with something that smelled of old pine.
It's built to keep the heat out, Buck. Which means it might just keep it in. We can make this work. We have to.
He turned back to the door, already planning. A stove, blankets, mud for the cracks. Outside, the wind began to climb. Charles found his family exactly where he had left them, huddled together for warmth beneath the pine, their faces pale in the moonlight.
Well, did you find anything out there, Charles?
There's an old ice house. Double walls, sawdust packed. It's dry and still. We can stay there tonight.
An ice house. Charles, that's a freezer. We'll freeze solid before morning.
Pa, I don't want to go in a cold place. I am already cold.
She's right, but so is the cold. We'll be dead by dawn out here. Margaret, listen. The walls are thick as my arm. If we get a fire going, it'll hold the heat. It's our only chance.
He's never led us wrong, but a tomb made of ice. God help us. All right, Charles, but if the boy's teeth chatter all night, you are the one walking him around.
Charles exhaled a cloud of steam. Then he hoisted Thomas onto his hip, took Margaret's cold hand, and started toward the dark, waiting Icehouse. They arrived at the Icehouse as the first gray light of dawn crept over the ridge. The building looked uglier by day, a windowless block of blackened timber.
This is what we have. God help us.
Pa, it looks like a giant coffin.
It's waterproof and sturdy. It'll do. Come on, let's get inside.
Word travels fast in a small town. By mid-morning, a handful of townsfolk had gathered on the road, watching the Dawsons carry scavenged blankets and a pot into the old ice house.
Well, look at that. Charles Dawson's moving his family into a meat locker. You plan on hanging beef in there, or just yourselves?
Henry Caldwell's laugh was the loudest, a braying, contemptuous sound that carried across the snow. Other men joined in.
Her face burned with shame, but she kept her head down and walked past them.
Pay them no mind, Margaret. They'll laugh differently when the real cold hits.
He pulled the heavy door closed with a dull boom that swallowed the laughter, sealing his family inside the cold, dark space. Inside, the cold bit deep. Charles dragged the stove they'd salvaged to the center and fed it kindling.
Thomas, hand me those splinters and the little tin of matches.
Thomas fumbled with the matchbox, his small fingers stiff from cold, but he struck it true, and a tiny flame bloomed. The fire caught the pine needles, then the kindling. A warm orange glow pushed back the shadows.
Pa, it's working. I can feel it.
Charles, it feels warmer already. I didn't think it would.
The sawdust walls are holding the heat, just like I hoped.
Soon, the ice house was warmer than their old cabin. Margaret spread the blankets, and Thomas curled up with Buck.
I owe you an apology, Charles. This might actually keep us alive.
Outside, the wind moaned, but inside, the family slept without shivering for the first time since the fire. At dawn, the stove still glowed. Charles touched the wall, warm, not cold. He knelt and pried at a seam with his knife. Dry sawdust poured out, 3 inches of tight-packed wood shavings.
So that's it. The same stuff that kept ice frozen all summer is keeping our heat in.
He checked the outer layer through a gap. Frost crusted the exterior timber, but the inner wall was bone-dry and warm. He spent an hour plugging every gap in the doorframe with cloth and frozen mud.
No drafts getting through now.
When he stepped back, the heavy door sat so tight a candle flame wouldn't flicker.
This place is a fortress.
He understood then what the town didn't. Insulation doesn't care which side the heat is on. Confident, he nodded to himself. They'd live. All they had to do was outlast the winter. The next day, while shifting a stack of mildewed ice saws, Charles's boot struck something hollow beneath the sawdust. He brushed the sawdust away. A heavy wooden trapdoor, its iron ring flush with the planks. Charles pulled the ring. The trapdoor groaned upward, releasing a breath of cold, still air.
It's cold down here, but no frost. Just like a root cellar.
Margaret climbed down after him, her skirt brushing the ladder. She touched the stone wall and smiled.
Charles, this is a larder. We could store potatoes, carrots, salted meat, a whole winter's food.
Can we put apples down here, Pa? I miss apples.
We can, son. We'll fill it up before the first heavy snow.
We might eat better this winter than we ever did in the cabin.
For the first time since the fire, Margaret's laugh wasn't forced. The Icehouse had given them one more secret gift. The weeks that followed were a rhythm of small chores and smaller words. The Icehouse kept them alive, but the town kept them apart, as if their misfortune were catching. Thomas would come home with red eyes, his coat torn from shoving matches on the school road, his lips trembling with held-back tears.
They called me Freezer Boy, Pa. They said, we live in a block of ice like dead fish.
Oh, Thomas, come here. They don't know what they're saying.
What matters is we have a roof that doesn't leak, a stove that burns, and food in the pit. The rest of them can laugh. They'll change their tune when the real winter comes. You'll see.
You think so, Pa?
I hope he's right. For all our sakes.
They won't break us. Not now.
That night, the family closed ranks. Thomas slept between them, Buck's head on his stomach, the warmth deeper than the stove. A week later, the first real blizzard screamed out of the north. Wind howled, and snow fell so thick you couldn't see your own hand. But inside the icehouse, the stove glowed cherry red, and the only sound was the crackle of burning pine.
Charles, this is warmer than our old cabin ever was. I can't feel a single draft.
That's the sawdust. It's keeping every bit of heat we make.
Look at Buck, Pa. He's not cold at all. He's happy.
For the first time in weeks, the family didn't feel like refugees. They felt like people who had outsmarted the winter.
Let it storm. We're safe in here.
40 degrees warmer than outside. That'll do.
The storm raged for 2 days. Drifts climbed halfway up the icehouse walls, but inside, the family played cards and told stories.
You know, Charles, I used to dread winter, but right now I wouldn't trade this old freezer for any house in town.
The next day, Charles walked into town for salt. The streets were still thick with snow, the air sharp as glass.
Look here, boys, the Iceman cometh. Tell me, Dawson, did your family turn blue yet? Or are you still waiting for the big freeze?
Henry Caldwell had drawn a small crowd, their breath puffing in the cold as they snickered.
Don't give him what he wants. Just get the salt and walk.
What's the matter, Dawson? Cat got your tongue. Or did it freeze stiff in that meat locker of yours?
Charles bought the salt, his jaw tight, and walked past the laughter without a word. But on the long trudge back to the Icehouse, the laughter echoed in his ears like something that wouldn't die. Margaret saw it the moment he walked through the door. She took his cold hands in hers.
They're just words, Charles. They can't touch the warmth we have in here.
But they can. They can. And they won't stop until this winter proves them wrong.
3 nights later, the cold came not as a storm, but as a stillness, a deep, killing silence that split stones and froze the blood of cattle where they stood. Inside the Icehouse, Charles pressed his hand to the wall. The inner timber was warm. Outside, the frost was so thick he couldn't see through the glass.
Margaret, the thermometer's holding at 60. 60 degrees, while it's 40 below out there.
I've never seen cold like this. The window in the town church, it's frozen solid, and the stories coming from the farms.
The stories were grim. 3 farms had lost every animal to the freeze. Foundations cracked. Families huddled in single rooms, burning furniture. In the Icehouse, the stove glowed. Thomas and Buck slept in a heap, warm as summer.
We're safe. But at what cost? The town is freezing while we sit in a palace of sawdust.
God help those souls. Charles, we have to do something. We can't just sit here.
The Icehouse, that absurd joke of a building, was barely visible under the drifts. Yet inside, it was the only place in the county where you couldn't see your breath.
Henry Caldwell's out there somewhere, freezing. Even he doesn't deserve this.
A frantic hammering cut through the quiet. Buck barked, and Charles opened the heavy door. A neighbor stood shivering in the snow, his face blue. He choked out the words, "Henry Caldwell's house is coming apart. He won't last the night."
Charles, we have to bring him here. It's the Christian thing, no matter what he did.
The man who called me a fool before the whole town. And now I am supposed to be his salvation.
Pride won't keep us warm. Charles, only mercy can do that.
I remember every word he said. Every single one.
Then let him see what real strength looks like. Show him you are the better man.
If I go, I am not doing it for his thanks. I am doing it because my family taught me better.
Margaret helped him into his coat, her hands steady. Buck whined, pressing close. Outside, the cold waited. Somewhere in the dark, Henry Caldwell was freezing. Charles steadied his breath and reached for the door. The door groaned open. The cold hit like a fist. Charles pulled his scarf high.
Wait, Charles. Take the rope. If the whiteout gets bad, tug twice and I'll pull you back.
She looped the rope around his waist, her fingers trembling from more than the cold. Buck whined, pushed past Margaret, and stood rigid in the snow, nose pointing to Henry's farm.
All right, Buck. You know the way. Lead on.
He looked back once. Margaret stood in the doorway, the stove's glow framing her. Then Charles turned into the wind and vanished into the white. The world was a sheet of noise and ice. Every breath sliced, the rope tugging lightly.
400 yards to the farm. Just follow Buck.
Buck plowed ahead, a dark shape against the snow, leading Charles into the storm. The farmhouse loomed out of the white, a hollow silence, no smoke, the door half buried in drift. Charles shouldered it open. Inside, Henry sat against the far wall, a blanket pulled to his chin, his lips blue, eyes glassy, the room colder than a tomb.
Henry, look at me. It's Charles. I've come to take you somewhere warm.
Go away, Dawson. Don't need your pity.
This isn't pity. It's a rope. Now put your arm around my shoulder before I throw you over it.
Henry's pride cracked. He sagged into Charles, his weight almost nothing.
He's skin and bone. The cold's been eating him for days.
Charles looped the rope around them both. Buck whined, pressing close, his warmth a small mercy.
We go now. Slow steps. Buck knows the way.
The wind swallowed his words. The Icehouse felt a world away, but Henry was on his feet, and that was enough for now. The trek back was a slow nightmare. Henry sagged against him, shuffling, tripping. Charles's legs burned, but Buck never wavered. Twice Charles fell to his knees. Twice Buck's insistent nudging forced him up. Ahead, the faint orange glow of the Icehouse window. Margaret must have been watching. The door flew open, and her silhouette rushed toward them, warm light spilling out.
Bring him in. Thomas, pull the blankets near the stove.
Charles collapsed just inside, Henry tumbling beside him. The heavy door slammed shut behind them, sealing out the storm. The heat struck Henry like a physical blow. He gasped, his blue lips trembling, his hands reaching toward the stove.
Easy now. You're safe. Just breathe the warm air.
Warm. It's actually warm in here. How is this possible?
Henry's eyes fluttered open fully. He stared at the timber walls, the glowing stove, the dry sawdust floor. Nothing like the frozen tomb he'd imagined. Charles, still catching his breath, leaned against the wall and watched the man who'd mocked him absorbed by the warmth of the freezer.
How? How is this ice house so warm? It's supposed to be a freezer.
Charles pushed himself off the wall. He walked over and pried back a loose board. Dry sawdust poured out. "This is how," he said.
2 layers of timber, packed tight with sawdust, built to keep ice from melting in July. Keeps the cold out and the heat in.
Henry reached out a trembling hand and pressed it to the inner wall. Warm. His jaw went slack.
Insulation doesn't care which direction the warmth is going. It just stops it from moving.
All those jokes, all that laughter, and he was right all along.
Henry said nothing. He pulled his hand back and stared at the sawdust floor. Margaret, passing by with a bowl of stew, paused. Her eyes moved from Charles to Henry, and she understood. The silence in the Icehouse was heavier than any of Henry's words had ever been. Charles nodded once, then turned to stoke the fire, letting the warmth speak for him. The storm still howled, but word had already slipped through the drifts. The Dawsons' Icehouse was warm, and Henry Caldwell was alive inside. A desperate knock came, then another. Charles opened the door to a mother clutching an infant, her face cracked with frost.
Come in, all of you. There's room by the stove.
More followed. A grizzled farmer, 2 children with frozen mittens, an old woman who could barely walk.
Thomas, fetch the extra blankets. Buck, stay close. They need your warmth.
Within an hour, the freezer was a refuge. The irony was lost on no one who could still feel their fingers. A murmur rippled through the crowd as they noticed Henry, alive, sitting beside the fire he had mocked.
Pa, they're all looking at Mr. Caldwell. Why?
Because sometimes, son, the truth is warmer than pride. Let them look.
And so, the Icehouse that had been a joke became a sanctuary. The sawdust walls held the heat, and Charles held the door open. The murmurs hushed as Charles stepped into the center of the circle. The stove crackled. The wind outside moaned.
You all laughed when we moved into this old freezer. You called it a tomb. But it's not a tomb. It's a lesson. These walls were built to keep heat out, but heat doesn't care which way it's going. Insulation works both ways.
He let the sawdust run through his fingers. The crowd stared, some with dawning understanding, others with shame.
He saved me. Me, the loudest fool in the county. And now he's giving them the same truth. It's true. Every word. I was the biggest fool, laughed the hardest, and nearly died for it. This man dragged me through a blizzard to save my life. And his meat locker, is the only reason any of us are still breathing.
A silence fell. Then, a murmur of agreement rippled through the Icehouse. Nods of respect, some cast down eyes.
My husband, the fool who was right. I've never been prouder.
Charles held out a hand to Henry. No gloating, no "I told you so." Just a steady palm, and Henry took it. The handshake broke the last of the ice. Suddenly, the Icehouse buzzed with low voices, farmers sharing losses, mothers trading recipes for hard bread, old men recalling other winters.
Here, Mrs. Harrow, take the last of the soup. We've got more in the pit if we need it.
Thomas, once shunned, now sat in a circle of children, telling stories by firelight. Even Buck had a new friend, a small girl clutching his fur.
This old freezer. It saved us first, then Henry, and now it's saving the whole town. I never could have imagined.
Dawson, let me help with the wood. I am not much good, but I can still lift a log.
Gladly, Henry. There's a pile by the door. Just don't let Buck steal your mittens.
For the first time in weeks, Margaret's face was unlined with worry. She moved through the crowd, like a calm sea touching shoulders, refilling cups. The Icehouse had become a small town in itself. Voices, laughter, the smell of wet wool and wood smoke.
Charles, this is what you built. Not just a shelter, a home for all of them.
We built it together, and we'll keep building as long as the cold lasts.
As the deepest hour of the night settled, the crowded Icehouse grew quiet. Henry found Charles near the woodpile, away from the others.
Dawson, I owe you more than I can ever repay. I mocked you, and you saved me. I was wrong, and I'll spend the rest of my years making it right.
You don't owe me anything, Henry. Just promise me you'll help your neighbors the way you've been helped.
I will, and come spring, I'll help you rebuild. I was a carpenter before I got old and bitter. These hands still remember how.
Charles looked at Henry's outstretched hand, the same hand that had pointed and mocked, and took it without hesitation. The grip was firm, and something shifted. Enemies became allies. Scorned became respect. From across the room, Margaret watched. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't interrupt. She just turned back to stoke the fire.
A did it. Not with anger, but with patience. My Charles.
This old Icehouse, it held more than heat. It held a whole community together.
Outside, the storm still howled. But inside, the sawdust walls stood firm, and for the first time in months, peace felt like something that could last. The thaw came gently. One morning, the Icehouse dripped with meltwater, and the first green shoots pushed through the snow. On the site of their old cabin, Charles and Henry worked side by side, sawing timber and setting stones, their breath visible in the cool air.
Hand me that level, will you? I haven't forgotten how to plumb a line, even if my joints complain.
In the meadow nearby, Thomas and Buck raced through the thawing field, the boys' laughter ringing across the wet grass.
Charles, look at them. After everything, they're as free as spring robins.
Charles straightened and wiped his brow. The old Icehouse stood behind them, door open, no longer a joke but a landmark.
It saved us. It saved Henry. It's the only reason we're building again. I'll never take down its walls.
Buck barked, and Thomas tumbled into the grass, the dog licking his face, while the first real sun of the year warmed their backs.
You know, Dawson, when I laughed at you, I never imagined we'd be standing here like this, friends, rebuilding together.
Charles didn't answer with words. He just clapped Henry on the shoulder, and the two men turned back to their work, the Icehouse standing watch in the distance. As the first stars pricked the twilight, Charles and Margaret settled on an old bench outside the Icehouse. The sawdust walls held the day's warmth.
We owe this old freezer our lives. I never thought I'd say that without a bitter laugh.
No bitterness left, Charles. Just gratitude. It kept us safe, and it gave us back each other.
Thomas tumbled onto the bench beside them, breathless from chasing Buck, his cheeks pink from the cool evening.
Can we sleep out here tonight? Buck wants to see the stars.
Charles looked up at the sprawling night sky, the first constellations of spring. No wind, no storm, only a deep quiet.
Ironic. The place built to hold ice held our hopes instead, and it didn't let go.
Margaret took his hand, and together they watched Thomas and Buck doze off under the vast, forgiving sky. The ice house stood behind them. No longer a joke, no longer a tomb, just a set of walls that had learned how to hold the heat of a family. And high above, the stars that had once seen their desperation now watched over a peace hard won and deep as the sawdust that saved them.